let's talk about insurance, everybody's favorite subject. So in this video, we're going to go over the general types of insurance that you're going to potentially have as a business, and then which ones are going to be important to us as Amazon sellers, and then tell you a little bit about each one. So the types of insurance that you could get is there's general liability insurance. I'll explain these in a second. General liability, product liability, and then of course stuff like vehicles, workers' comp, errors and emissions. So just very briefly, and then there's an Amazon suspension service. We're going to go more in depth on these two, but I'm just going to briefly tell you guys what these ones are. Vehicle insurance, pretty obvious. Workers' comp, so essentially if you have employees, basically if they get injured on the job, that's so that you are going to be able to insure them. And if they are like, hey, I got disabled for life, carrying these boxes for you, that's essentially what workers' comp insurance is. Errors and omissions, let's say you have negligence or you have a services business and you give bad advice to somebody and they act on it and it hurts their business. This is the type of insurance that would protect you potentially. So there's that. And there's Amazon suspension insurance, but I really don't suggest anybody gets that, because when you read the terms of service, basically they say only if Amazon is completely in the wrong, you did nothing wrong, will we cover you, and they only kind of cover for small expenses, and just it's out there, but if you're wondering about it, not worth it, in my personal opinion, but that's up to you. Anyways, here's the ones that we need as an Amazon seller. There is general liability and product liability. Now, general liability is actually required by Amazon once you get to a certain selling limit. From my understanding, you can start selling without having any insurance at all. That's your personal choice, but it's technically required when you get to a certain point. But also, from my understanding, Amazon doesn't check it, and I've never heard of anybody actually getting checked for it. I think it's just in their terms of service. So at the end of the day, this comes down to your choice, and then so is product liability. So we'll get into what these types are, 1 and 2 right here. Basically, general liability is, here's the most common types. I've just found this on the internet. So essentially, it's just this kind of just general stuff that could potentially happen to your business. So if you have, let's say, a bunch of inventory at your house and somebody, or you have a bunch, sorry, not at your house because it wouldn't cover you for that, or wherever your place of business is, okay? It could be your home office, but it'd have to be within the home office. But essentially, wherever your place of business is, and if you get stuff stolen from there, it'll cover that. Like random pipe bursts in your office or something, could potentially cover that. Stuff like damage from wind and hail, fire damage, a customer falls and slips. So this is actually probably the biggest one that would be of concern to us, because as we're sending out packages, and this is why Amazon requires it to you to have it at a certain point. Basically, if we sell a product, okay, and then it goes to the Amazon warehouse, and then now it gets shipped out to a customer. I think there's somebody who tripped over a box at one point in their front doors, like UPS just dropped it off at their house, makes complete sense. But then the guy didn't see it or something and tripped over his box as he was going outside, and then he sued UPS and Amazon and the seller. Very, very odd circumstance and pretty rare, but essentially that's why we want general liability here, mainly for just because we have packages going out to people, and if we're the seller, our name could potentially be on that lawsuit, but having that'll help cover you for that. So general liability, I'll show you the Amazon site quick. I'm here on the terms of service that you agree to when you sell on Amazon, and if the gross proceeds of your transaction exceed the applicable insurance threshold, so basically if you sell a certain amount per month for 3 months in a row, then you're technically required to have general liability insurance for your business to continue to sell on Amazon. But like I've said, I'm not sure how hard they restrict that, but as your business gets larger and more successful, you definitely want to have some form of insurance. And the general requirements for it is that $1 million per occurrence. Yeah, so in general, this is a pretty cheap insurance to get, and you could potentially get it to cover you over these random fringe things that might happen to your business. Now we're going to talk about product liability, because this is where the big claims come in. So essentially, if you have an issue with your product, it wasn't, the process of it getting there, someone tripping outside your business office or something. This is like your product injured someone, or it went faulty, like a cord burned and then the whole apartment burned down or something. And these are huge. So, normally $1 million for general liability on, if it happens, and then product liability is going to be about this big. So it looks scary, but this is what happens. And these are often like, against big giant companies, or like, where something big or negligent has happened. So that just goes to show product liability is huge. So what does product liability insurance cover? This is a very fuzzy picture. Sorry. And thank you to the internet for providing it. Manufacturing defect. Okay. So let's say your supplier is going there and there's a random defect and that causes injury or harm to somebody. You'll be covered for that. A faulty design. So maybe there was some design error that you hadn't thought about, and then because of that, it causes damages. It'll cover you for that. Insufficient declaration warning. So maybe you didn't put a warning or something on it, like with the McDonald's coffee cup, where maybe they didn't put the warning of hot. Be careful with this. It potentially could cover them for that. And then safety. This is hard to read. Safety related shortcomings. So yeah, that'd be kind of like the McDonald's coffee cup there too. But here's an exclusion in product liability insurance. Just because you have insurance doesn't mean you're safe and you could do whatever you want. And this is what a lot of sellers overlook. They'll just go and, source anything, and their manufacturer will tell them that it works. And they're like, okay. And then they'll just go buy insurance and be like, okay, I'm protected. And whatever, if something happens, like, it's not a big issue. But here's a big thing. Obviously, they won't cover financial losses. So like, you miss out on revenue, they're not going to compensate you for the damage to the upside of your business that could have happened. They're not going to repair or remanufacture your product for you. But here's another one. Damage caused to a manufacturer's negligence. Now, this one is huge. So most people just are sometimes negligent. They don't check their certifications, okay? So they don't do all the due diligence to make sure their manufacturer is actually doing things properly. So basically, if you're selling anything that is potentially dangerous or has regulations around it, you want to make sure to look into those and that your manufacturer is doing all of that. And then you're doing your own safeguards. So somebody could tell you it's certified FDA and you can't just import that, okay? So maybe it's not FDA and somebody gets hurt. Okay, well, did you do due diligence to make sure they had that certification? And did you do any external testing or something? That would be how an insurance company would say, well, we insured you assuming that you had done everything. And then because you didn't do your due diligence and you were negligent, we're not covering you for this claim. So you have to be very careful with product liability insurance that you're actually getting covered, where most people just buy it and put their head in the sand. Oh yeah, and if there's like war, terrorism, or deliberate or willful non-compliance with statutory framework. So that just is what we just talked about there. So general liability and product liability insurance are going to be the two types of insurance that you can get. This one is technically required at a certain point. I don't remember the exact dollar amount, but I think it's like $10,000 a month or something. It's somewhere around there. And then there is product liabilities. So the question is, do you need to go and get insurance before you start selling? Well, that's up to you. Technically, you don't. But just, you're going to have to go maybe consult a professional if you're not sure exactly. But it's up to you. Like if you are doing a sole proprietorship and you don't start a business, like let's just say you're like, okay, I'm just going to import these and sell them under a sole proprietorship. All of your assets are going to be at risk. So essentially, if somebody could come and sue you because your product had an issue, because you don't have a company. So I would definitely make sure that if I was importing stuff that was, potentially dangerous, that I definitely am making a company, okay? And then your general liability is going to be, providing you against those random things. But if there's any inherent risk with this stuff, like you're putting it on people's faces or in their bodies, like, or it's dangerous and knives, I would definitely be getting product liability insurance because, something can and probably will go wrong at some point. I don't know if it'll lead to a lawsuit or whatnot, but why take a risk with the product liability? It only takes one burned down house or something to actually stop a business. So this is why I didn't go forward with all the LED lights that I really wanted, was because I didn't have a UL certification and I couldn't find a good manufacturer. I was like, I don't want to source this until I know for a fact I'm not going to hurt somebody or get myself in trouble. So but there's other things where you don't need to necessarily get insurance. Well, it's up to you always. But if it's a very simple thing, like it's gonna be pretty hard for somebody to sue about these alpaca shorts or these alpaca swim shorts because they're just swim shorts. Like, what are they going to sue you about? They could try, but Yeah, so I don't really know if you need product liability insurance for that, but that's up to you. So if you guys have any other further questions about product insurance, leave them down below. And then we have some more videos on where you can go and find them and what to expect and how the process works in a little bit.